Hi, my name is Dan Mascola, VP of Marketing for Admios, and this is the first of what we hope is many webinar series of what we're calling a tech showdown, which is basically taking a technical concept and having some of our developers debate the pros and cons or the differing perspectives of some deep technical concepts. So today we're capturing a really interesting one, Angular versus React, and we've got two great developers here. Giancarlo, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So I'm going to start by saying, again, I'm Giancarlo. I've been developing as a web developer for about 7 years, maybe. But I joined Admios about 5 years ago. So I've continued to work as a front-end developer all this time.
Awesome. And we also have Josue. You want to introduce yourself, Josue?
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, my name is Josue. As Dan mentioned, I've been a software developer for about 5 years now, and I've been with Admios for about a year and a half. I've been a full-stack developer ever since I joined the team.
Awesome. Very cool. So the kind of idea on how this debate even got started was Giancarlo would go around the office proclaiming how much he loved Angular. And he wasn't in the majority camp. He was typically in the minority camp here. Most other people and developers prefer React. And so Giancarlo's on the Angular corner and Josue is going to be on the React corner. And we hope that you enjoy this debate.
Yeah, so the main reason that I guess go to the Angular route, and the reason that I keep bringing this up in the office is just because I feel like Angular has many things that React might not have, or might not just provide to the developer. And I guess that makes sense because Angular is our framework, while React is just a library. But I just find like the use of React to kind of even be a framework unto itself with so many features and so many things that we tend to use with it. So that's kind of my point of view. It's just easier to do big things with Angular rather than doing big things with React.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Mia. So that's the thing with Angular. You said something very specific, and you said that it's easier to do big things with it. But it turns out that you don't always know beforehand if this project is going to be a big thing or not, right? And I guess that's one of the benefits of React. You can just get started. Most of the startups actually, you don't have a very clear idea of what the product's going to be. And if there's this concept, it's called Yagni, and it's, like when you do something that you think you're going to need, but actually you didn't end up needing. So that's, I guess, one of the things that you can avoid if you go through the React route.
Right, but I mean, what would you say happens if you do end up getting the big project where you do need a few, I could say set of skills or functionalities that you simply do not have like close to you, like it's easy to add. So there are a few things that React might do better than Angular, but I would say there are so many other things that may come even harder to implement or use, even for smaller projects. So I think one simple, functionality is form management. So every site, every project needs a form, whether that be for a contact form, or maybe that's some a complex logic business, whatever, that uses a form. I find that in React to be really hard, or not hard, but not straightforward. I could even say cumbersome, I think. And whereas Angular, like you mentioned, I think I would not say Angular is the best if you don't know what you're getting into. But at least for forms, I think it does make sense for me, if I'm gonna use a form-heavy app or something like that, I would not prefer that in React rather than Angular. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, it does make sense. So I guess what I would point in a favor of React is the fact that, as you mentioned, Angular has this tool out of the box, but then again, Angular has a very specific way of handling things, right? And the differences are that if you're going to use this tool, or if you're going to use Angular because of this tool, once you get started with the project, the developers going to work on that need either to have beforehand experience with the tool or framework in this case, or if they don't, they're going to invest a lot of time trying to understand how the framework works, because you have to adapt to what Angular has predefined for you. Now, on the other hand, React, it gives you the benefit to set it as you want it to behave, to build it in compliance with what you need. And while it might as well not have this tool out of the box, the solution is offered, because it's kind of open source based, with other projects, so you can integrate somebody else's project into yours. So it's not that you can't handle it. It's just that you'd have to use third-party libraries. And then again, working on JavaScript, and JavaScript itself promotes the open source integration or third-party libraries in this case. So I really wouldn't point that as a downside of React.
Yeah, of Angular, I think. Yeah, so I think you touch a point that is why I believe not many people even get into Angular, because I've known many people that don't like Angular and they haven't even tried it. And I think the one point that you touched on, I guess, makes sense against Angular, but at the same time, if you give it time, it's gonna work the other way around, which is being able to work in a project right off the gate with just JavaScript knowledge. It's way easier to start working with JavaScript in React than it is in Angular, for sure. So it's again, it's just easier to work with React as a learning point. But if you already know how everything works, and basically you just need functionality to be available, I think that's where Angular comes into play. But at the same time, I cannot disregard how I guess complex it can be seen from the outside. But once you get into it, I think it's just a boilerplate. I guess a bunch of boilerplates, but it's not really that hard. It's just maybe intimidating to start.
Well, as you mentioned, sure, a lot of people actually don't get into Angular because of how it looks from the outside. But then again, we come to what the project needs are, right? Because you mentioned that Angular's got some benefits. If and these benefits are only I guess they come to shine if you already have a very structured project. And then again, I come to something that I mentioned in the earlier points or parts of the call. It's that in the world of tech, it doesn't usually go that way, right? Even the methodologies, they're called agile because you don't know how things are going to roll. So if there's a sudden change, for instance, in the project or in the team itself, then again, I guess this time React would win that and would make or facilitate the possibility of a new developer being able to integrate into the project, rather than one that hasn't used Angular being able to join an already existing Angular project. So then again, we're just talking about whether the developers working on the project have previous experience or not, right? Because that's, I guess, the key point for
Right.
this very specific point.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, again, I guess easier to get into, but if you take, I guess, one developer that knows both, that knows both very well, and they might know the limitations of each. Like me personally, having worked with both, like in a professional level, like I cannot stress this enough. I mean, there are so many things that I've tried to do with React that are really simple in Angular.
But once again, talking about experience, right? I believe this is an important thing to take into account. And well, what you're mentioning, that it's easier for you to, or for developers to maintain a certain, or develop, I guess, once you already have grasped the knowledge necessary for Angular. And then there's something, right? If you already have the knowledge necessary to just, get rolling in Angular, we're assuming you're not a junior developer. And then again, if we're assuming that you're not a junior developer, usually whether, regardless of the technology, you already know the way of, how things go. Usually happens either independently, not only with libraries and frameworks, but also with languages. So it's just, what you have to do. You just need to know how it's on this very specific implementation or tool, whatever you're using. So yes, you would have to do some research on the React side, for instance. But, if you already know what you have to do, it's just, you don't have to worry about like, oh my God, I'm going to have to, this is, like a cumberstone thing. It's going to take you a while, but you're going to figure it out. You just need to learn how that specific tool manages what you want to do. So taking into account that you're not a junior developer, you should be able to grasp these concepts, fast enough, I guess.
Right. I mean, I guess we're circling back on the again, easiness of getting into, but even with React, it's a pro that it's easy to start, but it's also a con at the same time, because if React is so open and it's used so widely that if you really have an idea what you're doing yourself, you can in fact use React in a way that is not gonna result in a productive way at the end. So because it's so open, you are also open to bad implementation and mistakes. And at the same time, React is so, I guess, close as the implementation goes, that you don't have that much gap to do it wrong, I guess. There are so many things defined for you that are just there. I mean, if you don't use them, you're not using Angular. And when it comes to React, again, there are so many things that you will need that there may be 4 options for you to decide, and they may not play well together.
Well, as you've mentioned, maybe we're circling it, but kind of just going back to this point, it's that usually you don't. Sure, you can make mistakes with architecture, but then again, you don't have a junior architect running a project, right? So if it's an architect, you're assuming someone with experience, which would take responsibility of using the right specific tools. But this part, I guess, allows us to kind of go to the next point, which is both tools offer solutions for a very specific need. So I guess, it depends on what your project is meant to do, that the tool would apply for that, right? So if you want something, performant, I guess, and for a small project, you can go for React. If you want something solid for a large project, maybe you can go for Angular. So it depends really on what the client you're working for or the project you're working for is looking for. So for instance, I've worked on projects that usually don't know how the team's going to be, if all developers are going to stay on the team, because usually that happens with startups, you don't have a budget very well defined. So next thing you know is, hey, next month we're going to have developers, and then things are going well for you. And the next thing you know, you need twice the developers that you currently have, right? So if that's your main concern, I guess, React benefit your specific project. Then again, if you're working for an organization, it's been up for 14 years, maybe, and they already know what it is that they want. They have a very solid structure, and they don't suffer these other things that startups do. So maybe, in those specific cases, as you said, Angular is more convenient because the code base is probably going to be large, and what you need is consistency, not flexibility. So I guess, like with this topic or realization or way of viewing things, what we could mention really is that the tool would be performant for you based on what it is that your project needs.
Yeah, I mean, you touch a great point that maybe we missed at the beginning is that by definition, Angular is not really interchangeable with React or vice versa. They do try to fit different shoes. So my main, I guess, concern is that I've seen React being used in places where it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do great. While I do believe that in maybe those occasions, we could do that better in Angular. And that has happened actually, like in my professional life, maybe sometimes even as a client here, that the tech and the setup does not really match what we need to be doing or what we need to do actually. So I do agree at some point, at one level, that they're just different uses. But my question then is, why are we using that for everything? Because I haven't seen anyone draw a line and say, this is way too complex for React. I've never seen that happen really. And once you go with React, it's really hard to switch because we're assuming there may be years of development. So there's really no easy swap. And once you realize that you're missing a few things that you need that are not easy to do in React, maybe even Angular isn't the perfect solution, but maybe React isn't either. So that's kind of my point in all of this, basically.
Yeah, I do agree with that. As you mentioned, I believe one of the reasons why people tend to go to React is that, hey, we need a website, hey, we need an app, and the React offers the solution that reduces the learning curve for you to start going into the native world with React Native. But then again, this is the excitement of an easy to go on solution. But as you said, really there is a very thin line between easy to start with and easy to maintain, or whether it's the right tool for the right project. As you mentioned, I guess this goes beyond whether which tool is more performant or more convenient, but rather are we making the right decisions? Are we are architects actually focusing, or clients really? Because sometimes these decisions are imposed by the clients. So I guess that it all comes down to doing the research for what it is that our project demands to, and then based on that, choosing the tool that we need to provide a solution.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we are basically in the era of startups. And for them, not every company, not every startup is a tech company. And maybe React is just popular and that's what they use. But like I wonder if there were a background tech, would they still go with React knowing what comes next? Like I wonder that. Maybe the answer is no, maybe the answer is still yes, for reasons that we did not cover, maybe. But I guess that's the reality. React is just simpler and it's still great. And I'm just sad that people don't give Angular a chance. Because I do like it, and hopefully people try it after our discussion. Yeah, that's my only hope.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you both for your insightful perspectives. You both make strong points on either side, and I don't know if we settled the debate here, but hopefully it at least inspires clients and people watching this video to have a serious conversation about it, to really think long term about what might be better for their project and their requirements in the long term. So thank you both. I hope you all tune in for other tech debates that will be coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye now.